All right, good morning to everybody. Hope you can hear me okay. I know together with a few of the other presenters, I guess we have this awkward situation that we're kind of standing between you and the lunch. So we'll just try to make everything to keep this as interesting as it possibly can be. So my name is Persson, and I guess I'm the second Swedish presenter that has the opportunity to be here and speak to you yesterday and today. I'm representing a company called Acarix, and my background, I've been working on a senior European level for a number of years with companies such as Boston Scientific, Guidant, and St. Jude Medical. And then I made 2 exits, where the last one was in the larynx area with voice prosthesis and HMEs, and in the extent of a couple of $100 million back in the Nordic areas. I have the opportunity now to, within, say, 9-10 minutes, try to take you through the journey of the development that we have been doing over the last 17 to 18 years. And I'll try to dumb it down because I think it's really important. There was the presentation this morning from Leventhal saying, can you explain what you're doing in less than 30 seconds? And I think that's something that we all should carry with us sometimes to not overcomplicate it. But of course, we need to give you a solid explanation of what we're doing. Let's figuring out which one is the advancing one. This one. So, like I said, we're a Swedish Medtech company. We are listed on the Nasdaq in Stockholm, and we have been there since the very late part of 2016. We are currently a one-product company focusing on the abilities to rule out coronary artery disease, and I'll tell you why and how in a second. The business model is very similar to what we hear from many other presenters here. It's a patch, which is for single use only, and it has a magnetic sling that actually makes it impossible to use more than once. And then it's the capital device that we're actually using to read and allocate the sources from the patient. And it's all built on an acoustic system where we're actually listening to the blood flow and take advantage of the pitch that it's creating when you have a narrowing in your vessels. The main reason that I have the opportunity to be here together with you today is that we have now started our process to get into the US market. We made our FDA submission and we are following the de novo route, and we did that in November. So this is actually the first opportunity we have to present ourselves and to get some feedback from what you consider us doing for the US market. We have done quite a few achievements back in Europe already. We got the CE mark in the late 2016. We have been doing a selective and very careful commercial launch in Germany, Austria, Sweden, and the UK. And that's more to gain feedback and see how we actually can target the right customers for going there and get the system up and working. Being a small company, we're about 10 employees in total. We have a pretty robust and good clinical data with a number of publications. And I'll get back to the DANICAD 1. That is more than almost 1,700 patients that we're using to get our CE marks and those parts. And we have strong patent families that is following with the device. We just did the first submissions into the UK, and we're using the MIB policy, and we've got some really good early feedback from NICE as well. So we know that we have a technology that is actually fitting a need, but it's also one that might not be the one that is on the upper side, as we hear many of the highly evolutions that we see here today. The market and the technology. I think that most of the people in this room, and you've been hearing this over the day of yesterday and today, we all know that the cardiac diseases in many, many angles is the #1 killer globally. And to speak about the number of the opportunities is maybe not the right forum itself, because we all know that this market is, and we heard it all earlier today as well, growing significantly with the overall population of the planet. So we have a consistent number of need, and we know that it's in millions and millions. The one thing that you might not be aware of is that when you look at all these patients that are seeking help for stable chest pains, about 90% of every single patient that comes into the physicians, whether it's in the GP environment, whether it's in the cardiology offices or where it is, they do not suffer from coronary artery disease. And I think that every single physician you speak to, they will actually recognize that. They know that when they open the waiting room, they see that half of the patients that are there, they are not there because they have real coronary disease. They actually have it because they have panic anxiety, they have stress, they have inflammations, they have other issues. Of course, this is putting a huge burden on the system itself, because when you have so many patients that are seeking help with stable chest pain, they will all go up into the advanced way of the root cause of it. Looking at the same kind of number for the US, I'm not going to ask you to look at every single detail of this slide, but you can see that in a Duke University examination, they found out that almost 60% of the patient, and this is on a population of 400,000 patients, should not have been on the table and should not have had an intervention for the diagnostic. So I think at the end of the day, the reason that you're going to use something to rule out a patient has a very, very good fit, and it's actually going to save a lot of the thing, and you're going to make sure that you have the right patients in the more advanced setting of the healthcare treatment options. This is a video that will take 1 minute, and if I get it to work, we'll see. And you will also have a short pitch music as well.
Acoustic technology, ultra-sensitive phonocardiography to listen to the entire heart, from the heart valves to the blood in the coronary arteries.
The movie doesn't advance.
Due to CAD,
Excuse me?
may occur in the bloodstream.
It doesn't advance.
Turbulence
It's only the sound, but there's no activity.
Can be an important indicator of significant.
There we go.
Uses innovative acoustic technology, ultra-sensitive phonocardiography to listen to the entire state-of-the-art.
We have the sound twice.
To the blood in the coronary artery sound patterns. When arteries narrow, CAD score is then presented. Turbulence may occur in the bloodstream. The entire CAD test sound score calculation can be an less than 10 minutes. Significant CAD. The CAD score system recording phase designed to improve, filtered, segmented, and analyzed using state-of-the-art algorithms to identify abnormal sound patterns. The calculated CAD score is then presented on the display. The entire CAD test, including score calculation, takes less than 10 minutes. The CAD score system, designed to improve patient care.
Well, I hope you got the concept despite the double sounding. So, where do we think that the CAD score system would fit? Well, in a way, we know that the sooner or earlier we can actually capture those patients before they go all the way into the more advanced methods, the better it's going to be for the society. In Europe and in the US, the first things that happen when you go and see your physicians with stable chest pain is that they will do an anamnese. And I think that in the US, you call it the heart score. In Europe, it calls it the Diamond Forrester. And it's simply to interview the patients. Do you smoke? Do you suffer from diabetes? Do you have heritage, etc.? And that's all to determine whether the likelihood of having coronary artery disease is there. Then they would send them either to stress ECG, to put them on a bicycle. They would send them to different forms of echoes, or in worst case, take them all the way to invasive procedures such as angio. For example, in Germany, they do in 1 year 1 million angiographies, and we know that more than 60% of those should not be performed because there is no harm to the vessels of the patients. So what we're really aiming for is that to be part of the evaluation on a very early stage together with the physicians to make sure that they can rule out the patients that should not be putting a burden on the extension of the healthcare system. It's as simple as that if I try to really put it down to an equal level. If we look at the proof of the concept, how does this actually work when you actually start implementing this in real life? So this is coming from the DANICAD-1 study. And if you bear with me here and you think about how we actually follow the lighting, these are 1,700 patients. And the first thing you would do is the heart score or the anamnese. And by doing that, you will be able to actually rule out or remove about 220 patients that you can send home or to a different healthcare system than the cardiologist. Now, if you make a combination of doing both the clinical risk assessment together with CAD score, you're actually able to rule out as much as 42% or almost 700 patients. So the net gain by doing the combination of the heart score together with CAD score is that you can actually remove more than 500 patients from having them sent on to further and more advanced investigations. This is, of course, saving a lot of money in the system itself. We also know that we need to take care of the different reimbursements in the different markets. But of course, it's actually going to be a tremendous win-win because you can now make sure that you have the right patients at the right level of the examinations, and you remove the ones and put them for other causes that are going there. Of course, you need to look at risk and reward. So now if you rule out the patient, what if you would actually rule out the patient and they would carry some kind of coronary artery disease? We have an NPV, a negative predicted value of 97.3%. We have a sensitivity that is close to 90% and a specificity that is just around the 50% mark. When we look at the long-term data from the Danica study, you can see that in the first round, the red line is representing the patients that we actually indicated having coronary disease, and you can also see that's where the MACE point is significantly higher. If you look at the late revascularization follow-up over a longer period of time, up to 3 years, you can see that the patients with the green lines, that the ones that we actually ruled out safely, there is no MACE near it. It's actually a super safe system to use for the kind of profile of patient that we're seeing. So a huge opportunity to rule out patient at the same time with really no risk or added risk for the patient themselves. So from a strategic cornerstone perspective, we have just closed the right issue back in Europe, and we had a few different objectives, but the number 2, which is of course very important for us, was to start the US entry. So we have, as I mentioned, we have just made a submission of the de novo. The reason for the de novo is that we made our pre-submission based on the 510K, but it's very difficult to find a predicate device for us in the US market. So the recommendation back from FDA would actually go for the de novo. So that's where we are, and we have started that process. And then, of course, we are now starting to build our commercial awareness. And frankly, I'm a Swedish guy. We are a European company. We have a lot of combined experiences and understanding of the US market, but of course there is many things we need to learn on how to make things work forward for us here. So if I look at the real go-to-market strategy, we've been looking at the opportunities that we're facing, but of course it's going to be to first get the clearance from FDA. That's a necessity, that's a given. And we also have to combine and be careful in that timing, because we can't really go full speed ahead with the commercial activities until we actually know the timing of our FDA outcome. Although that's a vicious circle that I think many of us are facing at the same time. The main reason I am here is, of course, to hear your spontaneous feedback in various forums. We have 3 really main focuses of what we would like to do. We are very open as a company. I'm looking for a commercial partnership. It could be companies here that have a good coverage, that are interested in looking of representing Acarix into the US market, and that could be a regional or a national cover. I'm of course also very interested to speak to companies that would see industrial benefits. We know that, for example, if you look at troponin in the combination with the rule out, if you look at the companies providing with the stress ECG and the other things, we're actually providing with a very good synergy and kind of a closing of the opportunities that you're offering into the market. Financial engagement, we've heard many of the companies here having a very precise number of what they're actually looking for. We are in a situation where, like I said, we are already public in the Swedish market. We have 2 main investors in venture capitalists from Seed Capital and Sunstone Capital. We also know that they would be interested in having a dialogue for letting other investors coming in, because we're not so naive, so we know that we can take on the entire US market with the resources that they currently have. So I'm going to be in that room in the coming half hour, I guess, and I'm really looking forward to hear and see your feedback on that. Thank you for now.